Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Talking True Crime with Carrie. I have been introducing it as Talking True Crime with Carrie, but the page is actually Let's Talk True Crime with Carrie, so I apologise for that. Can't get my own page right. Anyway, I have been looking into a case that has deeply disturbed me. Anything to do with paedophiles or children really does get to me, as it does most people, I should imagine. This has given me absolute nightmares. It's taken me longer to go through it because I just have to keep knocking it off and trying to switch off from it. But it's just mind-blowing. So if you are very sensitive to this sort of thing, I would advise not to watch this one. It's a little warning. So today we're going to be taking a little look at Robert Black. He's a Scottish serial killer who preyed on little girls between the ages of 5 and 11. This absolutely broke my heart. I'm going to try and go through this without crying because it is quite sad. But yeah, hopefully there'll be no tears from me. So Robert Black was born in Grangemouth on the 21st of April 1947. So he was born out of wedlock. His mother was a single mother at the time, and this was frowned upon back in these days. So his mother ended up giving him up for adoption. He later went on to remarry, or to get married I should say, and have more children with her husband, but absolutely wanted nothing to do with Black. So right from the get-go he was rejected. Black was fostered by a Jack and Margaret Tulip. They lived in a small, quiet Scottish village, and they were in their mid to late 50s, so they weren't a young couple. They had no other kids. Now, they were both rather religious, and they were quite strict as well. And even though they'd fostered or adopted Robert Black, they still kept their name Black. So he was still, you know, a bit of an outcast. Even though he'd been adopted into another family, he was still an outcast. In later years, Robert would actually say in interviews that his foster parents were very abusive towards him. Now, his foster father died when he was only 5, but apparently his mother continued the abusive behaviour as she was accustomed to now, I suppose. He would be beaten for anything really, wetting the bed, you know, anything. It didn't really matter. He would be punished for it, and obviously it's quite clear to see that this isn't a suitable or stable environment for a young boy. Because of this toxic environment that Black was in, he started to rebel at a certain age, and he began to get a very unhealthy interest in children. He actually started offending when he was only 8 years old, which this is extremely young to be showing these signs, but he would go to great lengths to see up young girls' skirts. And there was also a situation where he actually molested a baby. So already at a young age he's starting to show signs of extremely disturbing behaviour. So in 1958, Black was actually sent to a children's home after his foster mother sadly passed away. His obsession or fascination with sex continued to grow, and him and a few of the other boys in the children's home actually raped a 12-year-old girl. There's usually a situation that becomes a key point to where, like, you know, how can I say it without sounding anything, like, to start a paedophile off. Like, there's got to be that one situation, and psychologists believe that maybe this was it, the first sign of him showing that he was going down this path. So after this incident, Black was actually sent to a same-sex children's home, and this was in Musselburgh, and now he is extremely lonely and feels like an outcast, and now he's put into this strict home. But things were about to get really bad for him. There was actually a member of staff in this home that was actually abusing the boys, and he was abusing one boy in particular. Now, this boy came of age and he was about to leave the home, and the member of staff actually demanded that he find him a replacement, and unfortunately Black was the one that was recommended, shall we say, to replace this young boy. So this may have contributed to Black's behaviour, but it certainly didn't start it or, you know, cause it. Yeah, Black had already started showing signs of you know, paedophilia already years prior to this with the baby and everything. This sexual abuse from this member of staff actually continued until Black left the home. So yeah, this is sad really, because nobody deserves to go through anything like this. So I don't condone what he ended up doing, but I do believe that this, yeah, probably contributed to it quite a bit. So at the age of 15, he left the home and he went on to rent a room at a boys' home in town, just outside Glasgow. He found a job as a paper boy, or a delivery boy. I think it was a paper boy. But in 1963, at the age of 16, Black approached a 7-year-old girl. He convinced her to follow him into the woods into an old abandoned air raid shelter, and it was then there that he choked her until she was unconscious, and then he molested her. So the way he got her to follow him was he told her he had kittens. Did she want to see some kittens? So obviously a 7-year-old girl and kittens was like, yes, no brainer. Yeah, unfortunately he molested her. He strangled her. I think he thought he'd killed her, but she was found wandering around alone and crying in the woods by 2 men later on that day. So yeah. So this is where Black would be arrested for the first time, but shockingly does not get convicted of the assault. But this would be the start of things now for him. Because Black didn't get jailed for this or charged for it, I think he kind of had a sense of like, well, hang on now, I can get away with this. And it developed his hunger to do it again. So basically thinking that he was going to get away with it every time. So yeah, here we go. In 1966, Black actually returned to Greenock, where he, I think that's how you pronounce it, where he actually lived with his foster family, and he ended up renting a room or lodging with a family, and they had a 6-year-old daughter. Now, he would often offer to babysit for the daughter, but one evening while he was babysitting and the couple were out, he actually did violate the poor girl, and this time he was sent to Borstal Youth Detention, but this would only be for 1 year. Way to go on punishing him. So in 1968, Black moved to London. He rented a flat at Stanford Hill, and he started a part-time job as a lifeguard. What a job for a paedophile to do. He ended up secretly taking pictures of some of the kids in their swimsuits and making what can only be described as a paedophile scrapbook. He also had many pictures of very, very young children being grossly abused and assaulted in there as well. So the book was full of absolute shocking images. In 1976, Black actually started working as a van driver, delivering posters all over the country, and this would actually give him the opportunity to act on his sadistic urges, so basically hiding in plain sight. Black spent a lot of time on his own, and I believe this gave him a lot of time to plan or fantasize about what he was going to do. In between his deliveries, he would spend his time driving around, looking for an opportunity to arise and basically finding a victim. And on Wednesday, the 12th of August 1981, that opportunity would arise, and unfortunately, sorry guys, it's just hard sometimes to, you know, when it's kids and stuff like that, I just find it quite hard to say it. When you say, you know, you realise how bad it is. So just bear with me if I go off on one. It's quite an upsetting case, to be quite fair. So yeah, Wednesday the 12th of August 1981, he was a 34-year-old at this time, and he was actually doing a job in Ballinderry, which is a small town in Northern Ireland. It was actually the school holidays at the time, and 9-year-old Jennifer Carrie was enjoying them with her mother and his sister. Jennifer just had a new bike for her birthday, and she wanted to ride down to her friend's, which was literally less than a mile down the road. But this would be the last time that she would be seen alive. unfortunately. So on her way to her friend's, Black was waiting to pounce, basically. It's thought that Jennifer stopped on the side of the road to put her cardigan on, and that Black actually approached her. They probably using the same tactics as he did with the other little girl, about maybe bribing her in with some sort of something that she may like. He grabbed her, he put her in the van, and he drove off. So she was always home on time, and when she didn't return home, when she said she was going to, her parents became a little bit worried and actually went out looking for her. And at 9 p.m. they actually rang the police to report her missing. The police actually set up search parties very fast. They included the army. Yeah, so they were set up quite quickly, and everybody was involved trying to find where this young girl was gone. Just before midnight, 2 local men found Jennifer's bike just thrown in a field about a mile away from her house. So yeah, not even that far. So the stand, do you know when you like park up a bike and you've got that little click that you just click down the stand there? Well, that was actually down when the bike was found, which suggests that she may have stopped the bike to talk to whoever was going to, you know, snatch her. Black had actually left the area as soon as he snatched Jennifer, but there was over 200 locals who joined the army and the police in the search looking for her. Obviously, as days go on, the chances of finding Jennifer alive start to dwindle, shall we say. And on the 18th of August, 6 days after Jennifer was taken, her parents would get a phone call, the devastating news that yeah, they'd found Jennifer's body. So 2 duck hunters found Jennifer's body in the McKees Dam, 10 miles away from where she was taken. She had been sexually assaulted, she'd been strangled, and then she'd been put in the dam. And unfortunately, her parents would have to wait 30 odd years before justice was served. It wouldn't be too long until Black struck for the second time. In later interviews with the police, they actually described the back of Black's van as what they could only describe as like a abduction kit. So it had such things in there as like a sack big enough to put a child in. Yeah, just, you know, random stuff like that I don't really want to go into too much detail about, if I'm honest, but you could probably imagine what was in there. So on the 30th of July 1982, Black was actually on a job in Northumberland and northeast England near a village called Colstree, and a young schoolgirl was leaving her house to go and play with her friends. Susan Maxwell lived with her mother, her stepfather and her siblings. And one afternoon in the summer, Susan asked her mother if she could go and play tennis with her friends, and said that she will walk home, but unfortunately Robert Black approaches her and she never actually makes it to play tennis. Robert Black approaches her in his van, and this was around 4:30 p.m. I should imagine, and this was the last time she was seen alive. She was snatched and chucked in the van again by Black. So I can't stress to you enough like how fast this guy worked. Like literally, he would pick somebody, follow and wait for him, and then it was literally bam, pick her up, snatch her, grab her, put her in the van, drive off, and that was it. It was that fast, and it's so scary to think, being a mother as well of a 4-year-old, it doesn't, oh, I can't. Susan's mother actually changed her mind about Susan walking home and actually drove to the place where she was supposed to be playing to pick her up, but there was no sign of her anywhere. So she immediately called the police. Tom Wood was actually a police officer on the case at the time, and they were actually sent down to the borders to help with the search. On the 12th of August, a body was found in a village in a lay-by in the West Midlands, so over 200 miles from where Susan was actually abducted. So unfortunately at this time it was summer, it was warm, and this meant that the body was very badly decomposed. So this means that it would take a while longer to identify, and so yeah, just a little bit longer to identify whether it was actually Susan or not. This also would make it impossible for the coroner to determine a cause of death. Yeah, not good. Susan was found partially clothed, which indicates that she was actually sexually assaulted, and the police were becoming desperate to find the person responsible for these two young girls. They started to investigate people close to her, also people that were around the area at that time, but they come up with absolutely nothing. Police believe that Black, one of the reasons Black avoided capture so fast was it was his planning, it was his detailed planning. It was, you know, he wouldn't just snatch somebody, he would look around, make sure there was nobody there looking, and then he would act. He would make sure that there was nobody that was going to end up witnessing what he was going to do. Yeah, nobody seen anything. He was also willing to drive bodies like hundreds of miles as well, so he'd pick them up in one place and dump them hundreds of miles away in another place. So once again, Black has got away with murder, but these urges don't go away and they become stronger, and it isn't long before another victim would fall prey to Black, and unfortunately this little one was even younger. The 8th of July 1983 at the seaside at Portobello, just outside Edinburgh, 5-year-old Caroline Hogg was just chilling at home with her. She asks if she can go and play on the swings very near the house. Her mother agrees and lets her go, and on the way to the swing she's spotted by Black. So Black's actually working in the area at the time. He spots her, he drives up to her, pulls over, grabs her, sticks her in the van, and he's gone again. Caroline's brother actually goes looking for her 15 minutes after and quickly realises that there's no sign of her anyway. Yeah, another one just like that. The parents called the police at 8 p.m. And once again Police Officer Tom Wood was on. Lots of people come forward and said that she was spotted on the promenade, the Portobello promenade, but this was never actually confirmed. So police actually appealed to the press, and this would become one of the biggest searches in Scotland. There were literally over 2,000 people out there looking for her. So on Monday the 18th of July, 10 days after she was abducted, Caroline's body was actually found in Twycross, 300 miles away from where she was abducted. But again, being the summer and it being quite warm, the body when it was found was actually quite badly decomposed. And unfortunately there wasn't much to go on. The one thing that they did believe to be true was that this little girl had actually been assaulted. So when police investigated the scene, they actually found connections to the other crime, the one just before this, and they'd been taken in the same circumstances, and they'd been driven, you know, miles away and just left in very similar locations. Now, because of the similarities in the crimes, actually 4 police forces joined together, but unfortunately due to having hardly any evidence at all, they weren't going to get any closer to catching this killer for quite a while. It took less than 3 years for Black to strike again. On Wednesday the 26th of March 1986, Black was actually on another delivery job in Leeds, and here is where 10-year-old Sarah Harper lived. So Sarah lives with her mother Jackie. She lives in a nice little street, it's a safe street, and just after 8 p.m. Jackie asked Sarah if she could pop to the shop and just pick her up some bread. Unfortunately, on her way to the shop, she's approached by Black and is never ever seen again. I should say never seen alive again. So the family got quite worried when she didn't return home from the shop. It went on a little bit and they started to think, well, where's she gone? Like, they went looking for her, they found no signs of her, then they called the police. Weeks started going by, but on the 19th of April, so just over 3 weeks after she'd been abducted, the body was found by somebody walking their dog near the River Trent in Nottingham. She was found in a rough area, like the police would end up calling it the Triangle in the Midlands, and this is roughly the same area as Susan and Caroline were both found, so this basically, yeah, I'll put a picture up. So the post-mortem actually showed that Sarah had been sexually assaulted. So Robert had now killed 4 young girls in just over 4.5 years. And this was becoming an obsession now, kidnapping, murdering, raping. It was becoming something that he just had to do over and over again. He had to do it. Thankfully, it wouldn't be too long after this that he was actually caught. This monster was actually stopped. Thank God. So as I said, by March of 1986, Black had killed 4 young girls from 1981 to 1986. And the police were no closer to catching him at all. But he was actually caught red-handed trying to kidnap a little girl. In 1990, Black actually returned to Scotland with work to a little town called Stowe. There was a retired postman watering his garden, or mowing his lawn. He was doing something in his garden anyway, and he sees a van pull up to a young girl, and he sees the young girl disappear into the van. He phones the police straight away, and he gives a good look at the license plate. So the police actually attend the property, and as they're talking to the ex-postman about this van, the van drives back down the road that is driven up. The actual van. He turns around and comes back. So he's kidnapped the girl, gone and done whatever he's done, and now he's turned around and come back. So obviously the postman shouts, "That's the van, that's it, you know, that." And Black is stopped. So like I said, they stopped the van and they detained Black, and then they went on to have a little look in the van. As they opened up the doors, first glance, nothing. When they looked closer, they actually found a young girl in a bag at the bottom end of the van, and she was literally a couple of minutes away from suffocating to death as she had a bag over her head. Unfortunately, the policeman that actually found this little girl was her father. Can you put yourself in that position for just 2 seconds? You're a police officer, you get called to somebody being abducted, a little girl being abducted, and you have absolutely no idea that you can open up the doors and see your little girl minutes away from being suffocated. Minutes away. I can't I just can't. So thankfully the little girl is still alive, they managed to get out, but she has been sexually assaulted. So it's just proof that, and you know, Black is an obsessed sexual predator / serial killer, and he was never going to stop until he was caught, was he? And if he hadn't been caught on that day, that little girl probably would have died. He probably would have dumped her body like he did the other ones, and then just carried on murdering and killing kids. On the 10th of August 1990, Black pleaded guilty to the abduction and the sexual abuse of the 6-year-old girl in Stowe. And he was sentenced to life in prison, and he actually went at Sawton prison in Edinburgh. Black actually had the audacity to appeal. What the absolute... You appealed it, like, you pleaded guilty and then appealed it, like, oh, God, get a grip. His defence actually suggested he be psychologically tested, and they, before they could start the trial. So the police actually brought in a leading expert in child abuse to look at Black. Ray Wire, this leading professional, was called, and he looked at him. He visited Black in the prison over 2 days, basically, and he came to the conclusion that the sentence was right, and Black knew exactly what he was doing when he went on to describe him as an extremely dangerous individual. He'd be right. So as soon as Black hears what Ray Wire said about him, he drops his appeal instantly, but he does ask Wire if he'll come back and talk to him some more. Apparently he wants to understand why he does this. So even though the police were trying to link Black to the other cases, they had no evidence linking him to them. They had no proof, and they really needed Black to confess. So luckily there was a breakthrough in the investigation. The company that Black worked for was a bit of an old-fashioned company, and they kept every single petrol receipt for every single vehicle. And this would be the breakthrough that the police needed to link Black to the crimes. So basically, what I'm saying is, every place that the child got abducted, Black had a petrol receipt, which put him in that area at that time. Boom. So by May 1991, the police had actually built up a solid case against the murders of Sarah Harper, Caroline Hogg and Susan Maxwell. 2 years after his arrest, in May 1994, he was convicted of killing Sarah, Caroline and Susan and was given 10 life sentences. He was also charged with the attempted abduction of a 15-year-old girl. Justice was done for them ones. Jennifer's killing wasn't initially linked to the other killings. Her family believed that he was responsible for this, and it wasn't until 2009 that Black was charged for Jennifer Cardy's death. Now, the trial took place 2 years later in Ireland. So the trial started on September the 22nd, 2011, and 2 months later, October the 27th, 2011, Black was charged and sentenced to another 25 years. Police believe that Black was responsible for other victims, and eventually they had enough evidence to charge Black and take him to trial for the disappearance of 13-year-old Jeanette Tote, who was in Devon in 1978. But this is where it gets a bit unfortunately, Black died on the 12th of January 2016. He was 68 years old at the time of his death. What a monster. I cannot believe people have got this in them. Like, I can't. Like, sometimes I look through these cases and some of them I become quite numb to, but this gets to me. Like I said, it took me ages to even write about it. Like, I've had nightmares. It's just kids. Anything to do with kids and animals. Ooh. Anyway, I hope we're all keeping safe and keeping warm because it's Baltic out there at the moment. Yeah, stay safe everyone, and I'll be uploading another video pretty soon. Peace out.